Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey, welcome back to Daily Dose Radio. This is the 5-minute Bible study that's free of MSG and GMOs. We've got a really good Bible study for you today. This one's looking at verses 9, 10, and 11 in Psalm 39. Let me read those for you. I was silent. I did not open my mouth. You have done it. Turn away from over me your stroke. I am consumed by the hostility of your hand. With your rebukes you turn away man from his sin, and you make his desire to be consumed like a moth. Thus every man is vain. Selah. I was silent. I did not open my mouth. Wait a minute. I think he did open his mouth. When did he open his mouth? Back up there in verse 3. Remember that? We had the 1, 2, 3 punch and then the oops at the end of verse 3 because he spoke with his tongue. He said he wasn't going to, but he did. And then we had verse 9. I was silent. I did not open my mouth. You have done it. I think what he's doing here is pointing us back up to verse 3 and telling us that the anxiety and the anger and all that raised within him because the wicked were before him was God's way of opening his mouth. Because you see, if you don't open your mouth, you can never say the prayer. You can never engage God. And so what does he do? He begins stroke by stroke to bring us to the place where we evacuate our desire to be the one in control, and we seek God and his control. I was silent. I did not open my mouth. You've done it. Turn away from over me your stroke. I am consumed by the hostility of your hand. You see, he's talking now, isn't he? Well, he's not stopped talking since verse 3. He keeps it up, but he says now it's God's fault. He saw his sin and he asked for deliverance, but he did it because the stroke of God was upon him, consumed by the hostility of your hand. With your rebukes you turn away man from sin. There it is. This is what God has done. He has, with his rebukes, turned away the psalmist from his sin. You make his desire to be consumed like a moth. What desire is that? The desire for life and riches and advancement and honor and pride and all the rest. You see, the rebukes of the Lord turn man from his sin, and his desire is consumed. Just like that breath of man that's just, it's just a day. The life of man is like a breath. It's just here and then it's gone. Every man is in vain. Selah. Well, that's because we're so brief. Our time here in this life is just but a moment. Notice that we have that idea of vanity continuing here in verse 11. So vanity shows up again here, and we began this idea of vanity back up there in verse 6. In vain does man walk, in vain he heaps up riches. You see, now we come back to this idea of vanity. This whole section, 6 through 11, is about the vanity of man, but God's sufficiency. You see, we are vain. We are empty-handed, but he is sufficient. He is full. We cannot. He can. God rebukes us for our sin. We repent. We ask for deliverance because only he can forgive. You see, man's strength is vain, but God's strength, well, we go back to that great confession there in verse 7. But now what do I wait for, O Lord? My hope. My hope is in you. Is your hope in the Lord today? Boy, I hope so. If you realize that his stroke is upon you, that his hand, the hostility of it is against you, that his rebuke is turning you away from sin, call on him. Call on him right now. Don't wait another moment. And ask him to forgive you. Seek his face. You will not be disappointed. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. We'll look at verses 12 and 13 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.